On August 9, there will be groups who will join the bandwagon celebrating the International Day of the world's indigenous peoples, which is popularly known as Indigenous Peoples Day, or in the political parlance, the Moolniwasi Diwas. Though recognized by the United Nations in the name of celebrating diversity and contributions of the indigenous communities, if we go into the origin of this day, it is nothing but imposing the collective guilt of the colonialists on countries like Bharat, which have been living with different tribes and traditions and religious practices for ages. Therefore, it is necessary to decode the origin of this day and the intent behind imposing this day on non-Anglo-Saxon countries and expose the agenda behind celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. The claim of Christopher Columbus discovering America itself is a nefarious and supremacist narrative of the colonizers. The myth involving Columbus reached the American shore on October 1942, bringing progress and enlightenment, source to a book published in 1828 by Washington Irving titled A History of the Life and Voyages of Christopher Columbus. 1 year after a brutal lynching in New Orleans of 11 Italian immigrants in 1891, the then US President Benjamin Harrison, through Proclamation 335, issued a call to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America by Columbus. Eventually, the second Monday of October was celebrated in the United States as Columbus Day. In reality, Columbus and the representatives of the Catholic Church gave a devastating and existential blow to the indigenous communities who were following diverse faith and traditions in America. Their lands were stolen, people were slaughtered and enslaved, their resources were looted, women were raped, and children were kidnapped. Treaties were broken, and possessions and goods were plundered over the centuries. As per an estimate, between 5 million and 15 million indigenous people were living in North America in the year 1492. But this number was reduced to fewer than 23,800 by the late 1800s. As per the July 2022 data, the Native Americans represent 2.6% of the total US population, or 329 million. The story of Anglo-Saxon colonizers worldwide is not very different, including in Bharat. In 1977, the United Nations International NGO Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Population in the America proposed to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Day. This proposal was a significant step towards acknowledging the historical injustices faced by indigenous communities and promoting their rights and contributions. Soon, many American states and cities started observing this day as a celebration rather than repentance. In 2021, Joe Biden became the first US president to recognize the holiday officially. Following the same trajectory, the United Nations declared August 9 as the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples in the recognition of the first meeting of the UN Working Group on Indigenous Populations held in Geneva in the year 1982. The same narrative is imported to countries like Bharat by the missionaries and the communists combined, who always harvested their ideological goals by using the scheduled tribes communities who have been part and parcel of this ancient civilization for years. Through missionary activities and tools like the census, the British have systematically created fault lines in the erstwhile colonies. Bharat is still paying a heavy price for it. British faced the most incredible resistance from the forest dwellers who were nature worshippers and had unique traditions, but still had a worldview and harmonious life similar to the village and city dwellers of Bharat. As they could not colonize the people and the terrain, they first isolated them through different acts, painting them as backward and manhunters, and then used missionaries to proselytize them. The Aryan Dravidian divide was an artificial racial construct by the British missionaries, as explained by Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. It was necessary theory to justify their colonial rule. Such fake construct and missionary activities should have been stopped after the independence. Unfortunately, in the name of freedom of religion, missionaries continued with their fraudulent methods of conversion, mostly with foreign funding, as pointed out by the Niyogi Committee way back in 1956. So their proselytization agenda could be unhindered. This schema of stabilizing Indigenous Peoples Day is a continuation of the same. The groups and the political parties who take pride in celebrating this day of colonizers' guilt consciousness should answer a very simple question. Why is the Indigenous Peoples Day celebrated only in the countries that were colonized at some point in time? Who were the people who used inhuman methods to convert these communities? What were the reasons that this legal categorization of civilized and tribals created? Why do the same groups continue to use proselytization as a tool by branding all other Bharatiya people as outsiders? Yes, the scheduled tribes of Bharat, a term which is used to refer to the indigenous communities of India who are recognized and protected under the Constitution of Bharat, have been the biggest victims of colonization. It is also true that they are the ones who have preserved the actual lifestyle and governance system of Bharat. The colonial systems perpetuated the thinking of state sponsored mainstreaming among policymakers, which is also a fact. They do not like the colonial laws and systems of governance, and we should respect that. Our constitution has created enough mechanisms to protect their unique traditions through representations. And all these factors do not divide Bharat as outsiders and original inhabitants. All Bharatiyas, irrespective of faith, language, and traditions, are the original inhabitants of Bharat. They are not just citizens but integral parts of these countries whose ancestry, culture, and motherland are the same. The scheduled tribes have the symbols of pride and celebration. Fortunately, the government has recognized them by commemorating the Janjati Gaurav Divas on November 15, which is the birth anniversary of great freedom fighter Birsa Munda, and honoring the contribution of scheduled tribes to the freedom struggle. We all should take pride in celebrating the national day dedicated to the pride of scheduled tribes instead of getting trapped into this international conspiracy of imposing the guilt of the Anglo-Saxon colonizers on others. Thanks for watching.